You meet someone new. You shake hands, you exchange a few quick sentences. Maybe there's even a moment where you both laugh, and everything feels normal, smooth, easy, like a standard human interaction you've done hundreds of times before. And then suddenly, almost immediately, something shifts inside you. Because just seconds later, you realize something uncomfortable, something you didn't expect to happen so fast. You've already forgotten their name, completely, like it never even existed. And that realization hits instantly, sharp, almost embarrassing, like you just failed at something basic, something you were supposed to get right without even thinking. And in that moment, a quiet tension appears, because you start questioning yourself, wondering how something so simple slipped away so easily. But what if this reaction is completely wrong? What if this isn't a mistake, not a weakness, not a failure, but a direct signal of how your brain actually works beneath the surface, in ways you've never fully understood? Because here's what most people never stop to consider. Forgetting names is one of the most common things people bring up to psychologists, more common than fear of heights, in some cases even more common than anxiety itself. And according to research connected to institutions like Harvard University, more than 70% of people regularly forget the name of someone they just met within the first hour. Not occasionally, not rarely, but consistently. Which means this isn't an exception. This isn't something unusual happening only to you. This is the baseline. This is the default pattern of how the human brain behaves in real social situations. And the reason comes down to something most people completely overlook. Your brain does not treat all information equally. Subscribe to the channel and like the video. This will help you better understand your brain and not miss important signals. When you hear a name, your brain registers it as an empty sound, just a sequence of syllables with no built-in meaning, no emotional charge, no visual anchor, nothing to connect it to anything else you already know. And when something has no connections, your brain has no reason to hold on to it. Compare that to hearing something like, "I'm a lawyer," or "I just moved to Chicago." Because in that moment, your brain instantly activates entire networks. Images appear, ideas form, context builds, associations start linking together automatically without effort. But a name does none of that. It just exists in isolation, disconnected, floating with nothing to attach to. And your brain does not store what has no connections. Now add what's actually happening in real time when you meet someone, because this is where everything becomes even more intense than you realize. You're not just listening, you're analyzing their face, reading micro-expressions, tracking their tone of voice, noticing posture, scanning for signals. At the same time, you're thinking about what to say next, adjusting your responses, managing how you come across, trying to be likable, trying to be present, trying not to say the wrong thing. And all of this is happening simultaneously, layered on top of each other, competing for your attention. This is what psychologists call divided attention. And in that state, your brain has to make decisions in real time about what actually matters. And not everything survives that process. Research from places like University of Colorado Boulder shows that social stress alone can reduce your ability to remember a name by more than half. Just the internal pressure to make a good impression is enough to disrupt memory encoding, enough to interfere with how information gets stored. So it's not that you didn't try, it's not that you weren't paying attention, it's that your brain was overloaded, processing something else it considered more important in that exact moment. And this is where everything shifts. Because your brain is not failing, it's prioritizing. There is a part of your brain specifically designed to recognize faces, known as the fusiform face area. And this system didn't appear randomly. It evolved over millions of years because recognizing people instantly was critical for survival. Knowing who is safe, who is familiar, who belongs, who doesn't. This had real consequences, immediate consequences. So your brain became incredibly efficient at it, almost automatic, almost effortless. But names did not exist in that environment. Names are a cultural invention, a relatively recent layer added on top of something much older. And because of that, they require conscious effort, deliberate encoding, intentional focus. Which means your brain is naturally better at remembering a face than remembering a name, every single time. And if you're someone who thinks deeply, analyzes behavior, reads people on a subtle level, this effect becomes even stronger. because your brain is already operating at a higher load. It's building impressions, forming internal models, connecting patterns, trying to understand who this person is beyond surface-level interaction. And when that happens, something has to be sacrificed to maintain efficiency. And very often, that something is the name. Because memory doesn't work like a storage device, it works like a network, a system of connections. The more links something has, the stronger it becomes, the easier it is to retrieve later. But a name on its own has no links, no image, no emotional layer, no meaning attached to it. It's a single, isolated point in a system that depends on connections to survive, which makes it incredibly fragile and incredibly easy to lose. Unless you change the way your brain encodes it, because the moment you create a connection, everything changes, instantly, not gradually, not over time, but right away. The most effective technique is simple, but almost nobody uses it intentionally. You take the name and you turn it into something your brain already understands, something visual, something familiar, something it can anchor to existing networks. Mic becomes a microphone, clear, visible, concrete. Tailor becomes a tailor holding a measuring tape, precise, detailed. Lily becomes a flower, soft, recognizable, easy to picture. And now the name is no longer empty. Now it has weight. Now it has structure. Now your brain has something to grab onto, a hook. And once that hook exists, retention increases immediately because the information is no longer isolated. It's connected, integrated, part of a larger system your brain is already built to maintain. But the most important part, the part that completely changes how you see yourself in these moments, is this. If you are someone who forgets names easily, there is a very high probability that you remember something else at a much deeper level. You remember what the person said, how they reacted, the tone of their voice, the emotional signals behind their words, what seemed important to them, what stood out, what didn't align, what felt genuine, what didn't. Which means your brain did not fail. It selected. Because your brain is not a recording device. It is not designed to capture everything equally. It filters. It prioritizes. It decides what matters based on systems that were built long before modern social expectations, long before names became a standard part of identity exchange. So while you feel that moment of embarrassment, while you think you missed something important, your brain may have already captured something far more valuable, something far more relevant to understanding the person in front of you. Not their label, not the sound attached to them, but who they actually are. And the moment you understand that, the moment you stop interpreting this as failure and start seeing it as function, everything changes. Not slowly, instantly. Share in the comments, have you ever caught yourself remembering everything about a person except their name?